Howdy everyone, I'm Kate Gennaro, a planning specialist with Texas Sea Grant. Today we are continuing our Hurricane 2020 video series, and we will be talking with some experts from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or IBHS, and from Smart Home America. So can you folks please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your organizations?
Hi Kate, thanks for having me. My name is Cary, and I am the Fortified Market Development Manager for IBHS. And IBHS is a research organization. We do research on specifically high winds and hurricanes, as well as hail and wildfire. We're going to talk about hurricanes today, of course. And that research, both in our facility that's in South Carolina, where we can apply these hazards to full-scale structures, as well as research that we do out in the field after disasters such as Harvey and Michael. All of that research, we determine some of the vulnerabilities in homes and business in business structures, and that all feeds into our Fortified program, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later.
Thank you, Kate, for having me as well. I am Julie Shiyou-Woodard. I am President and CEO of Smart Home America. And we are a nonprofit organization based in Mobile, Alabama. And we advise communities and homeowners and business owners about the benefits of resilience and pre-disaster mitigation and adequate insurance coverage and how to be resilient. And basically, we work to get stronger, sustainable, more resilient communities throughout the Gulf of Mexico and along the eastern seaboard.
Sorry, folks, my cat wants to be on the video today, so he keeps interrupting us. Beauties of doing videos via Zoom. Well, thank you, Alex and Julie, for introducing yourselves. Texas Sea Grant has a resource that we call the Homeowner's Handbook to Prepare for Natural Hazards. And the first edition came out in 2013. This year, we are revising and updating our book, and in the next edition, we're going to include a section on fortified homes. So that's why we're having the video today. We're going to highlight that program a little bit more. So can you give us a brief overview of the Fortified program? Alex.
Sure thing. So the Fortified program is a nationally recognized standard that is based off of 20 years of our research at IBHS, like I mentioned earlier. The program is essentially designed to address the vulnerabilities in homes and in structures, and has 3 different levels, and those levels are easy to apply at any price point, and that will help a home to better withstand high wind events, specifically hurricanes and things like strong storms and tornadoes and even convective storms. And it's not to necessarily prevent damage, it is to reduce damage, specifically property damage.
So who gets involved in the Fortified program? Is it for homeowners or is it for builders? Do business owners get to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes to all 3. We do have a residential program and a commercial program. Usually what happens is a homeowner or a builder will decide that they want to either build or retrofit. The program is also available for existing and new homes. And once that person decides they want to be engaged in the program, another really critical element of it is that we have a third-party evaluator that comes out to verify the program standards have been met. So for homeowners, that assures them that their home is going to perform the way that it was designed through the Fortified program. For builders, they would actually apply the standards during construction, and as that process goes along, the evaluator would actually come out and do some inspections throughout the process, taking lots of photographs and documenting that all of the standards have been met. And then once that process is complete, all of that documentation gets vetted by IBHS, and then we issue a certificate at the end of the process that will basically prove that home has met the standards.
Thanks for giving us an overview of the program. I also know that IBHS has a few really cool videos that show kind of how a house comes apart during a hurricane. So I thought we would take a look at one or two of those. The first one I'm going to show is it's like a side-by-side video of one house that you guys can explain a little bit more afterwards, but one house is built with the standards and one house is not.
So that just to give you a sense of what was happening there, the house on the actually both homes was a design that was pulled out of the Midwest and built to an inland standard, so a 90-mile-per-hour wind speed design. Both of them were constructed by the same contractor and inspected by the local code official. The house on the left is typical construction, so built again to code. The house on the right actually had about $3,000 worth of improvements, some of which include things that are happening already on the Texas coast and coastal areas across the country, which is what we call a continuous load path. So the roof is tied to the walls and the walls to the foundation. You'll also notice that the roof, the shingles stayed on the house, the siding stayed intact, the windows were secure. So there's some attention to detail that's put into the other home that stayed intact, such as additional nails and things along those lines that helped it to maintain. The house on the left, again, is pretty typical practice in inland construction, where most of it's just toe nailed, which is just nails tacked in, versus things that are like anchors that are actually holding the house in place.
So if you wanted to think about that, that would be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, central Texas, and more towards the northern part of the state. That is the typical building method in the northern part of Texas, where you build differently on the coast, as does most of the communities on the Gulf of Mexico. And they have that load path for the most part in there. The good thing about the Texas coast is that, especially in that coastal bend, so Corpus Christi on, most of the jurisdictions there, the cities and municipalities, have enforced codes, and they're pretty recent codes, so they are strong codes. And on top of that, you layer on top of that most citizens in the coastal bend of Texas have to go through that TDI and Texas windstorm, so the TWIA process of getting that engineered approval on a WPI8. So they have to have that form, right, saying that they've met the building has met that requirement set by TDI and TWIA in order for them to get insurance. And so the good thing about that is that you're already, if you're building new and you're in the coastal bend, you're already meeting the majority of the fortified standard. And some of that standard is actually really strong code that's not necessarily in the codes that are adopted. So it's a little bit above. Codes, let's just talk about codes for just a second. So a building code in its traditional sense is a life safety mechanism, right? It is a set of requirements that are adopted and enforced by a city, which makes them law. And it means that that structure should stay intact in order for you to escape it. It's very, very much about life safety. Building codes are not put in place to make homes hurricane resistant or tornado resistant. It is really about the life safety. What Fortified does is it takes that life safety and it keeps it there because you're already building to that code. And then it brings it to a little bit higher standard where it brings in actually protecting all your stuff in the house, right? So it's going to keep the water out. And we talked in the previous video about that water intrusion. So many homes after Hurricane Harvey still had catastrophic loss because they just had hours of inundation from rainwater in, where the wind didn't take their house down because they had that load path in place. But when they lost the shingles and they lost the covering on the decking, or they lost the decking, then the water just poured in. And so that is the uniqueness of Fortified, in an area that has code. So, you know, why worry about Fortified, right? My house is built to code. I have a WPIA. I've got, you know, windstorm insurance. You know, why am I going to spend, you know, 12 to 15 to maybe even $2,000 more dollars? Because you're going to come home from the next event, and I'm sorry to tell all of your viewers there will be a next event. You're going to come home from the next event, and it's going to be a mess, right? We don't have tropical storms and hurricanes and not have a mess to come back to. But your house is not going to have all of that water intrusion in it, and that you will have kept that rain out. And so all of your stuff will still be in your house, and it won't be saturated, and you won't have to put it at the curb, which means that it's less of a burden when you trigger your insurance coverage. It's a quicker recovery period. You don't, I said in the last video, you don't lose all your memories that get destroyed by water that you can't just replace.
I think that we have covered a pretty good amount of, you know, just giving an overview of the Fortified program. We would like to do a second segment to this mini series within our Hurricane 2020 series. We're going to have this is the first one for the overview of Fortified. And in our next video, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into building codes and why they are important and how the Fortified program fits into building codes. So we'll end here for now, and I want to thank Julie and Alex for joining us, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.